2-minute warning.
Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, July 6, 2023. Can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Richards?
Here.
Alderperson Denham?
Here.
Commissioner Green?
Here.
Commissioner Hillis?
Here.
Chairperson Groman?
Here.
Vice Chairperson Dieger?
Here.
Commissioner Lloyd?
Here.
Commissioner Martinowski?
Here.
Commissioner O'Day?
Here.
Commissioner Gore? We have a quorum.
Thank you. This is the time at our meeting where anyone from the public can speak in regards to items not included on tonight's agenda. Everybody wishing to speak will have an opportunity to be heard. We ask that you be mindful of everybody's time and refrain from making comments that are repetitive. We ask the members of the public to please keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Please sign in using the form at the podium and write legibly. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to speak on an item not on the agenda? When the agenda comes up, it's something you're interested in, everybody will get a chance to speak at that time, if that's okay. Yes, sir, you want to speak now? Just go right ahead. If you would just, when you get up there to the podium, sir, if you would just state your name very clearly and whether or not you're a Branson resident, we'd appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is JC. I'm a citizen in this beautiful city, and I have an issue. There's a flag hanging down there on the wall outside of the Sheriff's Department inside City Hall that is in clear violation of the flag code. It's not red, white, and blue. It's cut in half by a blue line. This is representing a political agenda, and it's hanging in a city, state, or government building. This has got to come down and replaced with an American flag. Please and thank you. The American flag is a flag I pledge allegiance to. I grew up in America. I grew up saying the Pledge of Allegiance every morning in school, and I didn't pledge allegiance to a blue line flag. Now, I really appreciate the police in this city. They're all pretty professional, but to me, that's a gang flag. And there's a blue line flag on every cop car, and I think it needs to come off. To me, it represents a division between the police and the citizens, and that's a problem in America today. They don't have the rapport as the citizens as when I was a little boy. When I was a little boy, I wanted to be a police officer, and I respect the police, and I think they're very much needed, and I just think that that flag needs to come down and be replaced with an American flag because it's in clear violation of the flag code of the United States Constitution.
Well, thank you, sir, for your comments. Appreciate it. Is that it?
Yes, sir, that's it.
Thank you so much. Anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, in that case, we'll move into our regular agenda. The first thing is approval of the Planning Commission meeting, minutes for our last meeting. I'll now entertain a motion to approve the June 6, 2023 meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Jager. Second by Mr. Day.
Okay, roll call vote. Commissioner Richards?
Yes.
Alderperson Denham?
Yes.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Hillis?
Yes.
Chairperson Groman?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Dieger?
Yes.
Commissioner Lloyd?
Yes.
Commissioner Martinowski?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Day?
Yes.
9 votes yea, 0 nay. Motion carried.
Thank you. Next item will be public hearing for request for zoning change from low-density residential to entertainment for the property located at 511 Dr. Good Drive, Branson, Missouri. Do I have a motion to bring this item to the table?
Motion. Second.
Did you get it?
Yes.
They're fast for me. Would the staff like to provide information on this item?
Yes, Chairman, thank you. Good evening, Commission. So the first public hearing tonight is for the zoning change request for a property located at 511 Dr. Good Drive. The applicant owner is Daniel Shannon of CFS Engineers on behalf of Glenn Robinson. So the request tonight is to rezone approximately 3.5 acres from low-density residential to entertainment with the intent to construct nightly cabin rentals. So the adjacent zoning around is, to the east is low-density residential, planned development to the north, and entertainment to the west and south. So zoning changes in our code is under section 94-7, and that's where you'll find the procedures for that, for zoning changes. We had a neighborhood notice postcard that went out to the surrounding neighbors within 185 feet, letting them know that this meeting was happening, and then also for our city council. Here's some orthometrics of the property, kind of zoomed way out. It's just north of West 76 Country Boulevard. Here we are zoomed in a little bit more. It's just north of Grand Country. This is the zoning exhibit. It's part of Lot 1A of the Glenwood subdivision. And we've got a series of maps here. This one is an aerial with all the utilities shown surrounding the property. This is the current zoning, which is the LDR, low density residential. The proposed zoning, which is the ENT. The current existing land use is shown as gray, which is vacant. So we got views from the north and the south. So to the north, it's a vacant, undeveloped, oh, I have party, but anyway, parcel. To the south is an existing single-family home, which is also Grand Country Resort. We got views from the east and the west. So to the east are existing single-family homes, and to the west is vacant, wooded, undeveloped property. So we have our Community Plan 2030 future land use map, and as part of that plan, it is called out as core entertainment for this particular piece of property. This is a preliminary site plan for the cabins that they're wanting to build and construct on this property. It's a photo there of the cabin of what they're going to be constructing. So the proposed rezoning is supported by the Community Plan 2030, and so staff is recommending approval of the request. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any of the commissioners have any questions? Now's the opportunity for public comment. Do we have anybody from the public that wants to comment on this proposal? Please just come up, ma'am, and
My name is Joy Straley, and I live, do you need just the city or the whole address? I live at 180 Cedarwood Avenue in Branson. And I just have a question. When you mentioned core, what does core mean? The core community?
Jennifer, can you address that for us, please?
Yeah, so our comprehensive plan calls out different land uses throughout the whole city, and this particular area was called out as the core entertainment district. And I can read to you the description, the definition of it, if you want me to. Okay. Okay, yeah. Okay, here's the definition of core entertainment. It says the core entertainment district will continue to be the #1 activity center in the future 2030 vision of Branson. The district frames 76 Country Boulevard, that is the primary transportation corridor connecting the core of the downtown to the larger community west of US Highway 65. It is the entrance and main gateway into Branson. The entertainment district encompasses entertainment, which could include theaters, museums, go-kart racing, etc., lodging accommodations, and retail uses. The district will be revitalized over time through redevelopment, building rehabilitation, and infill development. The entertainment district will be a priority for public investment in an effort to revitalize and encourage new investment into the area. New buildings will be high quality and distinctive to add visual interest and to complement existing development. So I guess what I was getting to is that this proposed rezoning is supported by the Community Plan 2030, that definition.
Anyone else like to speak in this item? Any of the commissioners have anything they want to add at this point? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, sir.
Good evening. My name is Todd Polk. I'm with CFS Engineers in Springfield. So I just wanted to add, while this address is off of Dr. Good Drive, this will be part of the Grand Country Complex. These will be part of the product line that they offer, and all access to these properties will be through the Grand Country Complex. There will be an emergency fire access through the property that actually goes on to Dr. Good Drive, but it will be gated with fire department access only, or emergency vehicle access only. So we're not adding any traffic into the neighborhood. And so it's just going to be another great part of what Glen has to offer the visitors. And yes, it's going from low-density residential to entertainment, but when you look at, so at 3.5 acres, low density is 3 lots per acre. That's roughly 12 lots. If you look at our site plan, that site plan shows a lot more units than what, that shows 62 units, and we're probably looking closer to 40 to 50 just because the terrain is a pretty stringent in there, and so that's probably the most we'll get. And so if you look at the lots that we would be able to get on this new zoned parcel, it'll probably be in the same about the same density that would be allowed under low density residential. So we're not really packing them in here. All the trees are staying that we can. We have done much redesign for Glen in the past to avoid certain tree disposals, so I'm sure we will do much the same in this case, and we will save as many trees as we can. So any questions for us? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions from the commission? Anybody else out in the audience? Any of the commissioners have any additional comments, or? Then I entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second? Ruth, did you say? Yes. Okay, thank you. Now call for a vote.
Okay, to close the item, we will do a roll call vote. Commissioner Richards?
Yes.
Alderperson Denham?
Yes.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Hillis?
Yes.
Chairperson Groman?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Dieger?
Yes.
Commissioner Lloyd?
Yes.
Commissioner Martinowski?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Day? 9 votes yea, 0 nay. Motion carried.
Thank you. The second item on the public hearing is a request for a special use permit to operate a drive-through at the property located at 550 Branson Landing Boulevard, Branson, Missouri. Can I get a motion to bring this to the table?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Jager and second by Mr. Lloyd?
Yes, I can do it.
Okay. Any of the commissioners have any comments on this? Oh, I'm sorry, staff. I guess I better go for you first, Jennifer.
Yes, I do, Chairman. Okay, yes, again, this is a request for a special use permit for property located at 550 Branson Landing Boulevard. Applicant owner is Wilson Wagner on behalf of Wilson Civil Design LLC. The current zoning district is neighborhood commercial, and the request is for the drive-through for the Scooters Coffee Shop. Our special use permit code is under section 94-16 that outlines the rules and regulations. Our neighborhood postcard that went out is an image of that. And then on this one, this is just the orthometric of the overall aerial view of it. It's just east of Highway 65. A little bit closer. Here's an aerial with our utilities. The current zoning, which is the NC zoning district. Existing land use, and I believe this might be a little bit outdated because I know they demoed the site, but it used to be a mix of office and commercial retail. We've got views from the north and south, from the east and west. So the existing conditions right now, it's a vacant, undeveloped property. To the north and south is a mix of office and retail. To the west, across the Branson Boulevard, is vacant wooded ground. To the east is a single-family residential subdivision. And our Community Plan 2030 Future Land Use Map calls it out as neighborhood commercial. This is the site plan that shows the proposed scooters and then how it would function on site with the traffic circulation and the drive-through. So a special use permit for a drive-through has specific standards that they have to meet and comply with. And so most of those standards in our code for a drive-through have been met. And these things cover things such as the location of the drive-through lane, which it has to be located to the side or the rear, which it is. Setbacks for the stacking lanes, it has to be 25 feet from the right-of-way. And I believe they have this one about 51 feet from the right-of-way, where the first car is in the line. The stacking spaces and lane requirements, they actually exceed the 6 that's required from the window box. I believe they have 9 in their queuing. The location of delivery areas, they are to be located not to be located in the front yard, and they're not. So we get to another one, which is the separation distance from the speaker box to the residential unit has not been met. So the code requires a 250-foot separation distance to a residential unit. And their proposed speaker box is approximately 170 feet to the nearest residential unit. So what this means is that approval of a variance must be obtained, which is a separate process from the Planning Commission. And how we have written our resolution for this item tonight is that the approval of this special use permit will be contingent upon the applicant receiving approval of a variance. So this is a good site plan that shows kind of what I was just talking about. Shows you where the proposed Scooters Coffee Building is, the location of the speaker, and then the distances to the home of 170 feet. And then the next line, it would be if it were to meet the 250 feet. So with that said, we are recommending approval, again, contingent upon the applicant receiving approval of a variance for the separation distance of the speaker box to the residential unit. Happy to answer any questions.
Any commissioners have any questions?
I have a question. Yes, sir. Okay, so let's talk about the variance. Does that come back to this board, or does that go through a city?
Right, it's a separate board, it's the Board of Adjustments, and they meet monthly. We're kind of anticipating that they might make the July 27th Planning Commission. And we've worked with the applicant and the design professional, which I think he's on the Zoom call right now, Wilson. We tried to redesign it to be able to meet that distance, and there's so many other different requirements, like, you have to have the drive-through on the side, and the cars have to be in the rear and the side, they can't be in the front. So they tried to push the speaker box closer to the roadway, but then you're too close, you don't meet the 25-foot setback for the speaker box. And this site is somewhat unique. I don't know if you've been out there, but at the back of this lot, it drops about 70 feet towards the homes. So when you're standing on that lot, you can see the rooftops of those homes that are just to the east there. And it's also very heavily wooded right now in between the two locations. But the Board of Adjustments, they have to go through that process, and that's a hearing, and they have to make their justifications to that board.
So I have a second part to my question, Mr. Chairman. This item, I thought, came up to the board a year or two ago, and we approved, they tore the structures down then for the coffee shop. So what happened to that approval?
Yeah, it sure did. It came through, I believe, in 2021, and so just like this time, they get 1 year to act upon it, which would be like to apply for a building permit or something like that, and that never happened. So in 2022, I don't remember the month, it expired because they never got a building permit to, move forward with action. But what I found, I did the site plan review for this one, and the previous one, it was pretty much in the same location. It did not meet the 250 separation distance requirement, but it did not get mentioned in the staff letter or the resolution, or they didn't go through the Board of Adjustments. We just happened to catch it on this second go-around.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody? Chuck?
So I'm going to ask a couple of questions similar to what I asked last time. So we all know how coffee and drive-through and looking at downtown Branson Starbucks is and how big of a cluster that can be. Was there any type of a traffic study or anything like that for this area? Because while a stacking of 9 is great, you could get quite a few more than 9 at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning.
There was no traffic study. Staff did not request one for this project.
Okay, and then follow-up, I did receive a phone call from a concerned citizen that lives in the neighborhood behind here. She mentioned to me that she sees quite a bit of wrecks, and this being in a close proximity to Compton Drive up there, that she was concerned about would this increase the possibility of additional wrecks in that area with the hospital and everything associated. So that's something I definitely wanted to bring up to the commission as well.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners?
Is the applicant aware of the requirements for presenting to the Board of Adjustment for the variance?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, he sure is. It's,
Thank you.
yeah, Mr. Wilson.
And I believe Mr. Wilson is on the line if anybody had any questions.
Any other commissioners have a question?
I have a question. And that's because of the coffee shops that are so busy. I mean, it doesn't matter which one you go to, they are stacked up. Greater than 9, just about everywhere. The Starbucks downtown has a severe problem because people park in the wrong lane just to get in. So the only entrance is just going to be off of what is now Branson Landing Boulevard, correct?
Correct, yes. And if Mr. Wilson wants to chime in on anything, he's more than welcome to. He's the design professional for for the site.
Sure, I'm here. I can help answer any questions. It's been well explained so far, though.
Well, to straighten that out, any other commissioners have anything they want to say? I too received a call from a resident just prior to leaving the house tonight. They were concerned, they were also concerned about the traffic. Is the planning department concerned about the traffic at all?
We're always concerned about, traffic and traffic backups and wrecks and things like that. I don't have any data in terms of, I personally don't have any data of wrecks in that area, but it's always a concern, but it's zoned properly for this use. It's kind of on an arterial roadway, so it's kind of what you expect to see on an arterial.
Any other comments from the commissioners? Any comments from the public? Anybody want to come up and speak on this agenda?
My name is Ed Brink. I'm the franchisee for Scooters Coffee, and I'd like to address your question first. When we were looking at this project, as you can see, this isn't a large parcel. And last year, when we were, or 2021, when we were before you, it got approved, and we were just going to be on less than half of this property, and we'd have only been able to stack approximately 5 cars. And we want to be a good corporate citizen, so I felt like we were creating a problem, both for myself, for Michelle's Floral, which was the business in the other building that we recently tore down. I thought we were creating a problem for both of us as well as the motorists with that stacking ability, which is why we didn't proceed at that time, and we went back to the drawing board and re-engineered the whole thing. Went back to the drawing board with the architects too, as far as that goes. And I think that we've come up with a pretty good plan here. We tried to get the stacking back from the road as far as we could. We tried to allow at least a 4-car stack on the other end when they're trying to exit. So 2 could go this way, 2 could go that way at any given time. Because I do realize that the traffic concerns are very valid there. That's a high-volume traffic roadway. And we wanted to address it as good as we could, possibly could, in the design of it. I'd be happy to try and answer any other questions that you might have.
Anybody have any questions?
Could we make this possibly just a right-hand turn only exiting, instead of going left, crossing 2 lanes of traffic, then going into 2 lanes of traffic flow?
I don't know if I can answer that question for you, Commissioner, because obviously right now the traffic out of any of those entrances and exits along there can go either direction. And I'm assuming that's the purpose of the center lane as well. But I'm assuming that a city would have the right to do that kind of thing, but I guess I can't answer your question for you, but I understand why you're asking it. But I think this particular design is a good one for this location. And we're very excited about coming to Branson. I'm very familiar with the community, and I'm excited to be a part of it, so.
Any other comments from the commissioners?
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments from the audience? Hearing none, I will close the discussion, entertain a motion to approve the resolution for a special use permit to operate a drive-through at the property located at 550 Branson Landing Boulevard, Branson, Missouri. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Now call the vote.
Commissioner Richards?
Yes.
Alderperson Denham?
Yes.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Hillis?
Yes.
Chairperson Groman?
Yes. I've been
Vice-
reminded we have to speak into the microphone, and I apologize, so we want to lean forward, speak in the microphone, folks.
Vice Chairperson Dieger,
Yes.
Commissioner Lloyd,
Yes.
Commissioner Martinoski,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Day,
Yes.
9 votes yea, 0 nay, motion carried.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question? Sure. Relating to this? In the after we start this, and I thought that was a good point, and maybe we need to direct the traffic to the west or north when they exit the place, because they would have to cross about 3 lanes to go left. Does our city take it upon them to redirect that traffic in the future if this was an issue?
I don't have an answer, being as how the, I don't have an
That was a good comment earlier.
excellent comment.
And I think that might be something to consider is,
But it's a comment that would apply to any of those businesses coming out of there, too. I
That's
come
right.
out of there every day, so.
right.
Okay, moving on. The last item tonight is a public hearing on a resolution recommending municipal code amendments to Chapter 94 of the Branson Municipal Code concerning drag shows. Can I get a motion to bring this to the table?
So moved.
Second.
We'll now open it to a public hearing on this item. Anybody from the public want to, I'm sorry, Joe.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, good evening. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Joe Lauber. I'm the city attorney. I'll be doing the staff's presentation on the matter that you have before you for this item this evening. Just as a little bit of background, we did have a series of meetings in May where public comments were provided with respect to concerns about drag performances that were going on in the city. And so this discussion this evening and the proposed ordinance in front of you is a direct result of those comments. The as a first, just kind of a step in walking through this is just an understanding of what the city's UDO, the current development ordinance, says now. There is a defined term for theater. Theater is a building, a room, or other setting for showing movies or for where plays, dramatic presentations, or other live entertainment is performed. There also is adult entertainment facilities. And adult entertainment facilities are places where patrons either engage in personal contact with or allow personal contact by employees, devices, or equipment, or by personnel provided by the establishment, which appeals to the prurient interests of the patrons, or where a person may observe any live presentation, videotape, or film presentation of persons wholly or partially nude with their genitals or pubic region exposed or covered only with transparent or opaque covering, or in case of female persons with the areola and nipple of the breast exposed or covered only with transparent or opaque covering, or to observe specified sexual activities as that term is defined in the city's code. Drag shows are not defined currently and are not specifically permitted, but these shows do not typically rise to the level of adult entertainment, as I just read to you the description or the definition from the city's code. If a drag performance were to cross the line into adult entertainment or rise to the level of any sort of other ordinance violation, then we have means to enforce the city's existing ordinances. Without a specific definition, drag shows would be considered live entertainment, which is permitted under the definition of theater. Thus, drag shows are currently allowed anywhere where live entertainment is currently allowed. So based on those those comments from the meetings in May, the mayor directed staff to begin work on an ordinance to regulate drag performances in the city. I provided a legal analysis of the issues related to the proposed ordinance to the Board of Aldermen in executive session, And the general consensus of the board was for staff to continue with the mayor's direction, which leads us to this evening's hearing. Without getting into or divulging privileged legal discussions with the Board of Aldermen, I will say that it is constitutionally challenging to create legislation that has been requested. The city must comply with the United States and Missouri constitutions, the U.S. Civil Rights Act, and the city's ordinance, which protect free speech and expression and prohibit gender discrimination. For the most part, regulation of activities that form the subject of this proposed ordinance is better left to individuals, the free market, or private or nonprofit organizations, including religious institutions, which do not have the same constitutional limitations that the city does. An ordinance regulating drag performances must be carefully drafted to consider constitutional protections of free expression and not be discriminatory on the basis of gender. Before you this evening, we have prepared an ordinance that we think does the best job possible to address these issues and balance these issues. So I will walk through and summarize that ordinance for you this evening. As you see on the screen here, we have a basic ordinance form. The first page is essentially, you see the word whereas on those. Sometimes people will call those whereas clauses, they're recitals. They're designed to kind of set the stage for legislation that is about to come, lay a background so that in the future, if a court is looking at this, or if future individuals are looking into this type of an ordinance, if it's approved, it'll set the kind of the legislative history, if you will, as what the Board of Aldermen was thinking at the time that they passed the ordinance. We can scroll to the bottom of this page. And then we'll go right on to the next page, please. Okay. You see at line 53, these are kind of what we call sometimes the magic words. Statutes require the certain words to be in ordinances of the city, and so this starts the actual ordinance itself. So at line 56, and if you would scroll up just a little bit further, please. I'm going to put line 56 at the top, please. There we go. Okay, so again, it is important to consider that the proposed ordinance as a whole, it is important to consider the proposed ordinance as a whole and not get lost in the details of individual sections. At the most basic level, this proposed ordinance imposes tighter restrictions on drag shows through a balance of 3 elements, for which I'll provide more detail during the remainder of my presentation. But up front, those 3 elements are defining the term drag show and defining drag show establishment. The second piece is limiting drag shows to the city's downtown zoning district. And the third piece is creating a special use permit requirement section before any property could be used for drag shows. So going first then to the definition of drag show. You'll see here on the screen that drag shows are defined as a live entertainment performance, so that would be different from something that would be on video or other means that is not live, where characteristics of men or women are exaggerated, and this would be by an individual or group of performers who are impersonating male or female characters while wearing extravagant costumes, which could include clothing, accessories, makeup, or removable prosthetics, excluding limb or eye prosthetics in that circumstance. So live performance, characteristics exaggerated, individual or group, impersonating male or female, wearing costumes, and the impersonation occurs for more than 25% of the performance, and the performance is intended to subvert gender stereotypes and includes jokes, references, dancing, singing, or any other conduct that depicts, describes, or is related to specified sexual activities as defined. And that would be similar to what was in the adult business definition I had given you previously. Or the group is paid for the performance, or patrons are charged to attend the performance. So that's the definition of drag shows as proposed. The second definition, as I mentioned, would be a definition for a drag show establishment, and that would be an establishment at which more than 60% of the live entertainment offered at the establishment qualifies as drag shows. The downtown district is the area which we have proposed that the drag shows would be permitted, and if you could put up a copy of the zoning map, please. The downtown district you see here is kind of the darker red. So if you notice, if you look at Main Street west of 3rd, it's kind of a brighter red, and east of 3rd, it's kind of more of a brick color. That anything that is in that brick color is what the city's existing downtown district. So why did we look at the downtown district? The reason that we looked at the downtown district is that while drag shows do not typically qualify as adult entertainment, as I read the definition earlier, these activities are similar to adult entertainment, and so it would be preferable to treat them similarly. Adult entertainment is permitted in the downtown district with a special use permit today. The third element, as I mentioned, is the creation of a special use requirement for drag shows. We'll go back to the ordinance, please. And we'll scroll down. The chart that you see here is what it looks like in the zoning code. And so this, where it says, you can see that across the top, these are the types of businesses, districts that the city's zoning code has in it. That D that you see there kind of in the, just a little bit right of middle for mixed use non-residential is the downtown district. You would see the definition of drag show would have an S next to it, which means that a drag show establishment, someone could only use a piece of property in the downtown district subject to a special use permit, which would come, I believe, before this commission for approval. And then they would need to meet those requirements, which we'll cover next. So we'll scroll down, please. So in order to use property for drag shows, these would be the requirements that would have to be met for a special use permit. I'm going to kind of paraphrase what is up on the screen here, but the requirements would be that there would be no minors unless parents or guardians allow. There would be no shows within 600 feet of a church, school, park, or residentially zoned property. There could be no shows within 600 feet of another show or an establishment of serving alcoholic beverages. It would have to be accessed through a thoroughfare street. There would have to be a minimum of 100 feet of street frontage to the building. Screening requirements have been proposed. Setback requirements have been proposed. There can be no windows that individuals from the street could view performances from the outside. There would be limitations on signage. There would be requirement for parking lots, and the hours could not exceed 8 to midnight, Sunday through Thursday, or 8 to 1 on Fridays and Saturdays. So again, you may wonder, how did we come up with these special use requirements? Essentially what we did was we took the adult business special use requirements that exist and we set them aside, and we took out the items that were applicable specifically to adult businesses, and then we tried to, what we did was we went in and modified those to have them meet the drag show definition that we had created for that one. So as I mentioned, drag shows don't typically lead to that definition of adult business, adult entertainment that we mentioned before. So what we would essentially be doing with this ordinance would be saying that we would consider drag shows to be essentially adult entertainment light. Again, you heard the pretty stringent definition that kind of a significant definition that we talked about early on in this presentation, and so that's where we came down on our recommendation for that. Couple of things. I know we had provided some information to the chairman ahead of time, and he had a few questions. And so one of the things I would like to address is back on the definition of drag show. So if we could scroll back up. Here you see drag show, the second paragraph. So we're looking at in the line 64. It says that the impersonation by the adult or group of adults occurs for more than 25% of the performance, and the performance is intended to subvert gender stereotypes. So a question that the chairman raised was, well, why 25%? And the honest answer is when we originally took this to the Board of Aldermen in the closed session, we said that this can be a blank. We had anywhere from 25 to 75% of the performance, and 25 was the one selected. Could this commission, ask to have that changed? Yes, you may. So that would be an area that if you would like to see a different number than 25% there, that's something that we could talk about. I do caution, though, and the background for doing this is that there historically, I think going back to Shakespearean plays, and if you'll go ahead and put the image up, I know it was up there earlier, we have seen historically that there are many comedy routines that exist out there where apparently, folks think that it's funny for, a man to dress as a woman. Here are 3 examples, one right from our own community. And so the idea here is to say there is some historical basis in having people dress as the opposite gender and, make humor of it. Now, there's a difference between, I think, the examples that we have on the screen here and many of the drag shows, and that is what we tried to address in this ordinance, is that the drag shows do tend to be very sexually charged. There are usually, much discussion of double entendres. There are jokes that tend to, lean that direction, and that's kind of what we're trying to focus on, with these shows being different from, just a typical comedy routine in that circumstance. And again, if the purpose is to have a drag show where the show is a drag show, and you have other shows that may exist out there that don't have the sexually charged language, that don't, do some of those other things that we, and they would only make up a very small percentage of the show itself, that there may be ways that, you can draw some lines there. And so that's that piece of it. We can go back to the ordinance. The other thing that I would like to point to is the question of subverting gender stereotypes. What does that mean? The idea behind subverting gender stereotypes is essentially when you have an individual who is dressed as the opposite sex, what they are typically doing in those circumstances is they're kind of focusing on stereotypes. And so they may, if it's a man that's dressing as a woman, they might speak in a high voice, and they might, flare their hands when they're, talking, as an idea that would be something that apparently is a more of a feminine stereotype, where if you had a woman dressing as a man, they might come in and be a big burly lumberjack, and I'm gonna, chop wood or something like that, where that's, a kind of a male stereotype, and they're essentially trying to really play upon that. The idea is that, I'm not that, but I'm pretending to be that, and I'm gonna really, push on these stereotypes that exist out there. And so that's where, we think it makes it different from, just other types of say, a comedy routine that doesn't have the sexual charge, and it isn't, pointing at gender stereotypes. I think that is what I have for the presentation, so I'm happy to take questions from the commission. Maybe do that before you start the public comments at least, so we can get those addressed.
Any commissioners have any questions? Yes, sir.
I do. So, we're addressing this in order to manage the possibility of the issue.
I'm having a hard time hearing you, sir.
I apologize. Okay, we're addressing this. You've been asked to address this so that the city of Branson can manage this so it wouldn't get out of control or whatever the issue is there. Also, but before you answer, we'll go back to that city map. You have said that this type of activity or a show could not happen within 600 feet of a church.
That's what is proposed, correct?
So if we have a church in downtown Branson, And that would wipe out 2+ blocks, I guess, right there, wouldn't it?
We have to give these types of businesses, whether it would be actually an adult business, which are in existence, or if we're essentially making an adult business light, if you will, with drag shows, we have to give them a reasonable opportunity to have these types of performances. That's the Renton case. It was a United States Supreme Court case from back in the early 2000s. You know, the city is in a position where constitutionally we have to give at least a reasonable opportunity to do that. I will be honest with you, I have not done the measurements at this point because this commission could have said 300, could have said 1,000, and we just want to set a framework together for what this commission would like to recommend to the Board of Aldermen. Then we would take your recommendation to the Board of Aldermen and then work through the issues. You know, we certainly could not set a distance that would eliminate the possibility of any drag shows. That is not something that we could do. We would have to at least, give some reasonable opportunity to present this type of entertainment.
Thank you. Yeah, I understand. We'll talk more later, but I understand the purpose. Yep.
Any other commissioners? I have a couple questions. Am I correct that if this ordinance is passed by the Board of Aldermen and it becomes effective, that existing acts meeting the definition of drag show performing prior to the effective date of the ordinance may continue to do so in basically the same manner as they have in terms of number of performances and types of performance?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that is the case. As zone, I commonly will tell my clients that zoning is a slow fix because the way zoning works is if a use is not prohibited, if it's permitted, and then the law is changed to make that an activity that can no longer, a use that can no longer be made of property, what you end up having is what's called a legal non-conforming use. Sometimes people will refer to that as grandfathering. The city code addresses legal non-conforming uses at 94-81. And again, I'll paraphrase from that. What that section says is that uses that were legal prior to the passage of a zoning ordinance may be continued so long as the use remains otherwise lawful, except that a non-conforming use may not be enlarged or increased, nor may it be extended to occupy a greater area on the land in which it was established. The use cannot be moved to another portion of the land in question. If the use ceases for a period of 12 months, it will be abandoned and cannot be brought back at that point. And no additional structures may be constructed in connection with the use that would also not be permitted under with the legal nonconforming use requirements. There are special requirements that apply to nonconforming structures and combined nonconforming structures and uses. It's actually a pretty long list. I didn't want to get into all that detail this evening, but I will also point out that a structure containing a nonconforming use that becomes physically unsafe as declared by a city code official cannot be restored or rebuilt without extinguishing the nonconforming use. So there are, while legal nonconforming uses do occur, they can expire, they can essentially be abandoned, they can be removed in time if the use is no longer being made.
But in practical terms that I can understand, if I was currently performing 5 drag shows a week in Branson and had been for the last 10 years, I could continue to perform the 5 drag shows in Branson, just I couldn't go to 35 or 50 of them.
Correct.
And would that be the same for a drag show establishment?
Yes. Okay. Yes, because as I mentioned from the outset, we currently do not distinguish drag shows from any other type of live entertainment at this point. So this proposed ordinance would at least give the city the ability to say, that is a drag show. It's not just live entertainment, because it doesn't rise to the definition of adult entertainment that we talked about. So this gives the city the ability to do that on a going forward basis.
That being the case, do we have to have a number in the definition of drag show? Can't we just eliminate the number? It's a drag show, but doesn't really make any difference. It's not going to impact on anything else except or do you, why do you want
It
to?
is a component of what we've proposed. Does it have to be in there? Maybe not necessarily. Again, one of the reasons that we put it in there is that there are examples historically for decades and maybe centuries where people have dressed as the opposite gender as a form of entertainment, whether comedy or whatever it is, and I would not, I want to be cautious in what I propose to the city with the idea that if you had, for example, an all-girls school that, or maybe some homeschooled children that get together and they don't have a theater and they want to, perform at a theater in downtown Branson because that's a good sized venue for them, and they put on Peter Pan, and a girl has to dress as Peter Pan in order to pull the show off with respect to this school. Is that, potentially going to run, awry of an ordinance that we would create?
Mr. Chairman?
Ruth?
Okay, just, excuse me, to provide,
Go ahead, excuse me. We'll get back.
to provide clarification, the legal nonconforming would apply to only this, if adopted, new drag show. However, if that venue chooses to violate the adult entertainment, that is not protected.
Correct. Yeah, that is something that is in effect now. If we had I'm just going to call like a regular live entertainment, then if participants in that live entertainment crossed a line and did the things that I described in the definition earlier, we would have the ability, and it's not a zoning ordinance, it's actually, there are other ordinances that come into play from the police department standpoint that they could stop that type of a use because it would not be permitted in the city, both by zoning and then in some cases, because it could be sexual misconduct, it could be exposure, it could be, there's a lot of things that it could be that we would have the ability as the police to stop that.
Information. So the example of the entertainers, and we had a local entertainer that would go in costume. And out on 76 Highway, if we pass this ordinance, they couldn't do that anymore?
If you take the definition that we put together as a whole, I will be honest with you, I haven't personally been to the show that you would be mentioning. But again, keeping in mind that as proposed, a drag show would be live entertainment, so that probably checks the box. It would be where characteristics of men or women are exaggerated, could possibly be, by an individual or group. We've talked about an individual. Impersonating male or female characters, checked another box. Wearing extravagant costumes, that's probably going to be a fact that a jury or a judge would have to decide. But wearing clothes, accessories, makeup, or removable prosthetics from that standpoint. And the impersonation would occur for more than, as proposed, 25% of the performance and subverts gender stereotypes. So there's a possibility that a judge or a jury could find that even some of the existing performances would meet this definition. And so I think that there is some potential where they would have established a legal non-conforming use going forward.
But going back to my original question, if they were performing now, tonight, and they were performing 3 times a week, that would not be impacted when this ordinance passes because they're already doing it as long as.
Right. I mean, if this is, let's say you recommend approval of this ordinance going forward, and let's say the Board of Aldermen ultimately does approve it, then, it would be incumbent upon the city staff to essentially conduct an inventory, if you would, of businesses that are undertaking these types of performances, have that logged, and we would know whether there has been an uptick in any sort of those performances at those locations. But anything going forward could not occur outside of, as proposed, the downtown district.
And if one of the theaters, one of our variety shows, bought-in guests that were performing in drag, impersonating, things like that. That's what that percentage is intended to cover?
Potentially, assuming that a variety show would meet whatever, percentage that you would put in place. If you moved it down to 0, then there's no room, in that circumstance. If they had just one act, even, 30 seconds in an act where someone, walks across the stage in drag and it's, a joke and ha, but you've just violated our drag show ordinance. That's why, we did put a percentage in there to kind of say, there's going to be, a certain level that's going to be acceptable, but, beyond that level, then it's kind of,
adjust that level then, right?
the intensity of the use has gone much higher.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Sure.
Anybody else? Comments?
I do have a point of information, if you don't mind. Now, the landing is not in the the landing is not in the downtown district, correct?
That is correct. The landing actually has what's called a planned unit development, I believe. So they have a separate kind of set of zoning requirements that apply. That would be the light blue that you see here next to Lake Taneycomo.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners? Before we start public comment, can I see a show of hands of how many people want to speak? Okay, if the procedure we're going to follow will be, you come up, state your name and whether you're a resident, and we'll give you 3 minutes till everybody's gone through one time, and then we'll go back over anybody else that wants to speak, because we don't want to, we don't want somebody speaking for 30 minutes while somebody's waiting. So if you don't mind that, first shot through, we'll give everybody 3 minutes. If you want to line up, I'll take it in line, and if you don't want to line up, if you feel more comfortable sitting, you just sit, and when we get through with the people in line, we'll go ahead and take you one at a time. We're not going anywhere until you've all had a chance to speak, so.
Good evening,
Excuse me, sir.
ladies and gentlemen.
If everybody could just fill out the sheet in front of the podium with your name and address.
Right
Oh,
down,
up front? No, I did not.
no, right
no,
down in
right
front
in
of you,
front,
sir, right
yes.
there, there's a sheet.
Okay. Anyway, I'm Jim Stevens, 2804 Cheverly Hills Expressway here in Branson. My biggest thing about this is that the minors, in my opinion, have no business being in any of this. I don't care if their parents or grandparents or anybody else comes here, they need not to be there. We don't need to screw up the kids any more than they already are. And I'm adamantly against it. And I know you have to allow for them to put this someplace, because we dealt with that when I was in California with the marijuana shops. In my opinion, you need to find a 40-acre field outside of town. That's where they need to plant it. Thank you very much, and God bless.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, my name is Jill Reynolds from Branson West. And what I'd like to say is I moved to Branson because this is God country.
Amen.
If I wanted to move to Las Vegas with prostitutes, that's where I'd be. And I'm going to be very transparent to you guys, which I'm revealing secrets of my life. But I was a naked dancer in San Diego, and I've been around this crap. I'm a born-again Christian. I came here because this is God country. When you start this slippery slope, these shows will end up in our schools. And if you don't think so, you give permission here, they'll be in our schools. If you don't make this 21 and over, there are parents out there right now that are going to schools asking for litter boxes so their children can urinate because they think they're furries. So there are parents that are that ignorant that will bring their kids to these shows thinking they're funny. We are all going to be accountable to a holy God one day. We will. And if any of you say yes, you better realize what it's going to be like when you see God. Secondly, you better be prepared to have your police force understand you do this. They better be trained as vice squads, and they better be there the whole time the show's on so they can arrest them when they cross the line. Because these shows will cross the line. And if your police department isn't prepared to know what lewd is, because I did lewd, And when we were in strip joints, the vice had to be there to know when we crossed over that line, so we would get arrested as dancers. So you better have your police force prepared to be at these shows 24/7 and arrest them the minute they become lewd. And if you allow kids under 21 years old into these shows with ignorant parents, shame on you. But these things will end up in the schools, and you wait. 6 months, they'll be taking over the schools. I'm done. And if we do this to Branson, shame on us, all of us.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am.
Good evening, sir. My name is Ron Inch, Branson resident. Love this place, love
Love
this
your
city.
shirt.
Thank you, sir.
Love your
Love
hat.
this country, too. Two questions. The board here, you gentlemen and ladies, have the right, even in the downtown area, to say, heck no, you're not doing a drag show, for whatever personal or social or whatever reasons, correct?
We will make recommendations to the board. Yes, sir, that's our job, not our right, our job.
Do us a favor, say hell no, okay? Or heck no. I think if you look at the studies of this kind of activity, as the young lady talked about, the crime will increase. You're not bringing God-fearing, God-loving, God-honoring people to the community when you bring this crowd in, and that's just the way they are, okay? Secondly, in Louisville, Kentucky, maybe even St. Louis and other cities, when they wanted to do gambling and other things like this, all of a sudden, there were docks on the river that were floating casinos, et cetera. Are we covered, sir, on that map that there's not going to be floating bars and casinos and drag shows on floating restaurants, that sort of thing? Do we control that also? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments.
Hi, folks. My name is Rose Wilcox, and I do live here in Branson. I have been a PTA president in the past. Now I'm a grandma. And I am part of other organizations, like many of us, who love this community. Moms for America, the CWA, other groups, many groups. And there's a place for everything, and there's a constitution, but we have to be careful. We have to ask questions like you are and we are, and we have to be civil. My question today, I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget, was how have you compared this with other communities that have gone through this process? And, you know, we need to be careful where you put this opening because it can get worse, like others have already shared. How do the businesses feel about this downtown? I know that as a mother and a grandmother, I don't want any of this here. I think there's a place for it, if it has to be, because there's freedom of speech, freedom, the First, Second Amendments, but we're very strong here in this community, this county. I just hope that we just calm down and make the best choice for our kids and our families. Thank you.
Folks, as a matter of decorum, if you could kind of refrain, I know you want to respond to the speakers, some of us might want to too, but if we could just kind of let them speak and not respond, we'd sure appreciate it.
Thank you, Board, for letting me come before you today and everyone here. My name is Anna Harp. I live in Branson. I'm the owner of Travel Packages for Sale. And I'm also one of the 2 volunteers year-round for Operation Christmas Child. And I go to all the churches and I encourage them to get involved in it. So I hear a lot and I see a lot. As a travel agent, I'm addressed all the time for any time I book anybody to Mexico to the all-inclusive. And you know what the #1 question is? Is there nudity on the beach? I have to tell them, if you go to a 4-star or 5-star, you're guaranteed not to see it because they pay the government, since the government owns all the beaches. When I put people on cruise ships, I'm asked the same questions. How much rear end am I going to see? How much topless am I going to see? I advise them, I will call my agent at the cruise line and find out, is there any so-called groups on those ships? If so, I advise them not to go on that ship. We have a responsibility here. And our responsibility is, if you open the gate, here they come. I love my Lord Father with all my heart, all my soul, and all my mind. And if I didn't speak honestly to you how rigid I have to be with my clients, I'm going to tell you the same thing. You have to be just as rigid with anything that comes in that is going to come in dark. And this is dark, very dark. And we're all going to pay the price for it. All of us. I moved here a year and a half ago after my husband passed because this was one of our favorite places. We love coming and sharing God's country with godly people. You're going to be another, Bud Light? You're going to be known as a Bud Light. You're going to be known as Target. And Branson is going to lose revenue. They're going to lose taxes. You're going to lose the children coming in that find the entertainment here healthy with the parents. Watch out, because your back door is opened.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that.
I'm Joyce Straley still. I was up here earlier. Do I need to sign this again? No. Okay, so, number one, when we go to shows here, we always have a section on God, gospel music. God is lifted up. And we also have a section on honoring our veterans. And how are these transgenders and transdressers going to do that? How can they do that with honesty that we would appreciate something like that? It's not there. It's not in their agenda. Their agenda is to bring in the innuendos and all of the things that are perverse and are evil. And that's the road they're leading us down. They always dress as women. You don't see these cross-dressers as men because there's not as much to reveal, and there's not as much sexual enticement there. So they always dress as women that are very revealing. And I must say, those that I've seen, don't look so bad, which is how the enemy works. He's beautiful. Satan is beautiful. And that's how he entices, is those things that look good and look just fine. And I'll be fine. I won't be in any way affected by it, but we are. Every single one of us, even those that have walked with the Lord a long time. We are no different when it comes to temptation. It's always there. So their purpose is not to just entertain. Their purpose is to influence. And it influences all of us, not just the children. But our children today, our teenagers especially, are so tempted by anything. They don't even know how to sort things out. And they're in and out of trouble. We work with teenagers. And so we're always interceding on their behalf to try and teach and to pull them out, and let's start again, and let's get our priorities right. This kind of stuff, it's just down the street. Let's just go.
30 seconds.
Who's going to know? Who's going to care? And the pictures shown on the screen, by the way, none of those were sexually enticing. Those were comedy skits. Those were shows. They had nothing to do with what these people are wanting to do.
10 seconds.
And we need to stop it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
My name is Trudy Proctor, and I do live here in Branson. I moved here from another state. My question is, I'm not familiar with alderman, the term alderman. Okay. Are every one of you aldermans?
No, ma'am, we are.
Okay, I'm just asking a question real quick, okay?
I thought you wanted an answer. I'm sorry.
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry.
I said, are we all? No, we're commissioners.
Okay, so
We will refer it to the board. They are all aldermen.
so the mayor is not here tonight, is that
No,
correct? Okay,
we make a recommendation to the Board of Aldermen. That will
Okay.
be a separate meeting, and there'll be another public hearing there.
okay.
Thank you.
Like I said, my name is Trudy Proctor. I live here in Branson. I am here because I love the area and everything. What we're dealing with is good versus evil. Every one of these people that have spoken have said that over and over. Now, I'm going to give you a real quick example because I think this is something that all of us can relate to. And I heard this in the past. One time, a father and a son, the son came home to ask his father if he could go with his friends to go see a movie. His dad said, "Is there anything vulgar in that movie?" "Oh, it's just a little bit, Dad, just a little bit." So the father said, "No, you're not going." Okay. Afterwards, the kids came over to this young man's house. The father made brownies for all those kids because they all wanted to play together. And he said, "Hi, guys, I'm so glad you came to see my son. I want to give y'all a dessert." They started to eat it. And he said, "Oh, by the way, let me tell you something before you take a bite. I put just a little bit of poop in it." That's the point. You put trash in here, watch and see your percentages of people that will no longer vacation here.
Hi, my name is Gary Clayton, and I'm not a resident here, but I invest here and I work here. Greetings, fellow believers, patriots, and commissioners. Jesus said to the believers, he said, "You are the salt of the earth." But, he said, if the salt has lost its saltiness, it becomes good for nothing, but to be thrown out and trampled underfoot by men. And sadly, that's what's happened all across America. The believers are supposed to be salt. You know, when he talked to the people back in those days, they know what salt was. They didn't have refrigerators. They knew that salt was a preservative they used for meat. So they thought along those lines, salt, a preservative. So we as believers, we're here to preserve righteousness across the land. But if we lose our saltiness, we become good for nothing. Pretty powerful words from our Savior. Jesus said, "Occupy till I come." Occupy is a military term. It don't mean just reside and lay back and take it easy. Occupy means take over, rule, control. And that's our job in this land, to take over and to rule this land in righteousness. We are soldiers of the cross, and we have a responsibility to uphold righteousness. In Ezekiel 33, it says, "If the watchman sees the sword coming and does not blow the trumpet, and the people are not warned, the Lord says that he will require the people's blood upon the watchman's hand." The Bible says sin is a reproach to any people. That's all of Branson and the surrounding area. We bring sin in here. It's a reproach of this city. Jesus said a little leaven leavens the whole lump. Now, I'm not trying to stop their fun and have a
10
good
seconds.
live like they want to live. I just want to stop them from going to hell and leading others there with them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. Thanks for letting me speak. My name is Les Lamori. I'm from Branson West. I'm going to stand up for Terry Sanders. Terry Sanders is not a drag queen, a transvestite, or anything else. And I can't believe that you were so deceptive with that slide. Why did you not show us 3 real drag queens? I know why. I know why.
Sir,
'Cause
point
it
of
would
order,
make-
sir. Point of order, please direct your comments to us, not against any of the staff or anything.
Okay.
He was just doing his job and doing the best he could, just like you're doing the best you could, so if you.
And I'm just saying, if
But please
we were
don't
to-
cast any dispersions.
it's almost a lie, to tell you the truth, to not show us what drag queens really are like. I mean, you talk about putting lipstick on a pig. That's exactly what we did. Let's also remember, not on the docket tonight, but somebody else had mentioned the fact that gambling was promoted here. I think it was Rockaway Beach was the most latest location. Voted down every time it came up by the people.
Yes, sir.
I wish we could have a vote by the people on this issue as well. Faith, family, freedom. That's what Branson's about. That's what brought me to Branson. And I hope that you will all protect that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My name's Mike Kennedy, and I don't live in Branson. I live down in Hollister, but
Sir, would you sign that document while you're there, sir?
I'm sorry?
Would you sign that form while
Yes,
you're there?
sure.
Sure, appreciate it, sir.
Anyway, I'm Mike Kennedy, and I live down in Hollister, but I go to church here, and I shop here, and we spend a lot of time in Branson. And before we moved here 5 years ago, for 15 years prior to that, we always brought our kids to Branson. And their first week out of school in the summer, that's where we came. And we brought them. And one of the things we really liked about the whole Ozark, but the Branson area, was that you didn't have to worry about the shows you went to. They were all family friendly. And even if some off-colored show tried to come in, well, the other vendors would run them off by just bad-mouthing them. You don't want to go to that show over there. It ain't worth a nickel, you know. But the quality of the people here is the kind of quality that I think most of us, if probably all of us, want to raise our kids in an environment. And now I got my grandkids coming over here. And I don't want them tainted just like I did in my own kids. And I just appreciate you for the time that you serve for the town here. And I hope and pray that you'll make the right decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Rebecca White, and I live in Kimberling City. I moved here in January, but I've been in the theater arena roughly, not in any big positions, but I'm a musician performer, but I'm also a music educator, and I'm going to speak mostly as an educator. I've taught in the public school since 1993, about 20 of those years. One of those years was as an at-risk teacher. The rest of the years were as elementary to K-12 music. And the thing I'm concerned about is the redefining of drag queen. A drag queen is not somebody who dresses up just in clothing to look like a woman. The whole intent of the drag queen scene is wholly to present a sexual presentation. Anytime that you walk into any type of a show, you're gonna find people in costumes in Branson. It's not the costume that makes the person, it's the behavior. And I think that by defining drag queen merely as just people who are dressed up in makeup or outfits or whatever, would probably make it very difficult for most of the performers in Branson to feel comfortable as they're performing on stage, pretty much in any type of a comedic setting. I know Terry Sanders, and he's a great guy, and he will not do something in any way that would make anybody think in a sexual manner. He's a comedian, and he uses those things to honor comedy, just like Carol Burnett and Lucille Ball and many of those people. The whole thing is based on the premise of a spirit of an activity in front of your audience. As an educator, the reason I'm saying this is within the schools, I have had students who cannot figure out what gender they are, not because they don't know, but because they're lied to by the other educators in the school building. We are being lied to about what a drag queen thing is. It originally, the whole intent throughout all of history has been to convey, we want people to laugh at us because we're gonna do an innuendo. This show is just one. There's also another show that is being tentatively, or it is already planned, at the same place called The Hunks. And it is male men dressing down to where, I don't know if they're even gonna, I don't know how far they're gonna go. But the point is that's very sexually explicit. And the sexual element is what is behind drag queen. If they wanna get an audience to laugh and they just wanna be a pure comedian, I think it'd be kind of funny, frankly, if I dressed up as a guy and just got up there and, hey there, sweetheart, how you doing? But I can also imitate Elvis. So should I get penalized just because I can go, thank you very much? Okay? What I'm saying is it's not just the attire. And so the definitions that I think have been presented have provided me a little bit of a concern because I'm thinking you're only defining clothing. I think there needs to be a very clear definition. Drag queen is a sexual show.
10 seconds.
There is no question about it. And as an educator, my students, I know what they've seen and I know how they've been pulled into it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mary Feldhaus, and I now live in Branson West, but I lived in Branson for 8 years.
Mary, while you're talking, could you fill out that form? We just want to make sure you fill that out before you're through. Thank you so much.
And I wanted to, she said a little bit of what I wanted to say, but I wanted to say thank you for allowing the people to speak how they feel that live here or come to Branson. Years ago, my sister told me about a place. I'm from Chicago originally. My kids were raised in Indiana. And my sister told me about this place called Branson. I said, I just wish there was a place that had pure entertainment where you could take your kids and feel good and not have a bunch of junk and stuff, because we've been to Las Vegas a couple of times and other places, and it was inappropriate things there. And she said, well, there is. It's a place called Branson. And years later, the Lord led me to live here. I have 2 adult children that are entertainers in Branson. One is Shorty, you all know him, 7-foot-tall guy for real. And he's married to my youngest daughter, and they work at the murder mystery. My question is, Branson is known for their entertainment, and Terry Sanders imitates, does that, and it's to make you laugh. What is the show of the drag queens? What's the motive of their heart? Everybody in the shows, I love it. I invite family here, and they're veterans, and they cannot believe, and they're not from here, the respect they get for being a veteran and how they honor God and they just are amazed. They said, there's no place on earth like this. They've been all over. It's the motive of the heart of the show when you do the entertainment. What is the motive and I have 20 grandchildren, believe it or not. What is the motive of the heart of this show? Is it laughter, or is it men dressing like women? And what is their lifestyle? Do they live this way? Is this just entertainment, or are they actually men that dress like women? What example is that to our youth, to our children? What kind of an example is this that we're leaving to them? And I know many people a lot of them are Christians in Branson, and I love that they honor God. And I think that's why it's blessed. I would never even think to move to Branson if I was told there was a drag queen show here. I would think, well, that's not a
30
pure
seconds.
place. So I just want to make that, I think that you'll lose the tourism. People love to come here because of that, and that this city, this town, will go downhill. And that's all.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts.
My name's Joanne Caswell, and I live here in Branson, and I just wanted to speak. I was hoping somebody might address this, but the road to perversion is littered with disease, and this is something I don't think we've all considered yet, what you're bringing into the community. The organization that backs the drag shows, the LGBT, everything else they call themselves, that organization, they were the first ones at the height of COVID to run to Congress and lobby for special protections and special privileges because they claimed that they were immune compromised as a community. That's their own definition. And so there are lifestyles that lead to problems, and this is, you find on the CDC's own website, the level of disease that comes with such behavior. And I just think we don't really need to add this to everything else that they bring. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir,
Hello, I'm Eldon Sanderson, and I live at Kissy Mills, but we do all our shopping here in Branson. And I feel that I'm a born-again Christian, and I don't think there's any place for this in our community. I think that we should all band together like we are tonight and run this completely out of the city of Branson or anywhere close to Branson. I feel like now that we used to be that we're the ones being discriminated against because we have to put up with trash like this, and we don't have any voice of our own. We went to a show here a while back, and just across from us, we sat on a side aisle, a couple, 3 rows up, there was 2 men sitting there. And they was hugging and kissing right during the show. And I thought to myself, what in the world is this country coming to? It's crazy. The things that we allowed to go on. We complained. And she said, well, there's nothing we could do. The only thing we could do is move you to a different seat. Why should I be the one discriminated against? Move them to a different seat, put them on the back row where nobody has to look at them. I think that we need to stand up and let everybody know that we are a God-fearing country, people here, and that we do love the Lord.
thank you, sir.
My name's Phil Feldhaus. I'm Mary's husband, Mary Feldhaus' husband. And I live in Branson, west of Reed Springs. And I'd just like to say that what are we trying to do? You know, when you look at government, it's not that, in the separation of church and state, it's not that we don't, the purpose of that was to keep the government out of our religious or spiritual affairs, not to keep God out of government. If you look at government, they've got God all in everything, on the walls, on the Constitution. They start out in their meetings with prayer. So we want God in our country. And it seems like we're fumbling around to try to find a law to keep what's wrong out. I think we know what's right. This is a Christian country. But that's the way it was founded. It needs to continue that way. If there's no law to keep out what we know is right to keep out, there should be. If there's a way to rule against it, you should. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, sir. How many more do we have from the public that want to speak? The reason I'm asking is just one, or is there more? Okay, then when we're through, we'll take a break when we're through with the public speaking.
My name is Daniel Shepard. I live in Hollister. I can walk to the old downtown Branson in about 45 minutes. One of the things that I'm looking at is that I understand, I appreciate what the concept of what they're trying to do as far as proposing this type of a ordinance, or whatever you want to call it, to be proactive as far as that goes. But the problem is that we also have a misconception of what freedom of speech actually was about when the founders of this nation proclaimed it. Freedom of speech was to be able to talk against the government, to proclaim, riot, or not riot, but to protest against the government and its thinkings. It was not necessarily to be able to say whatever I want to say or act however I want to act, because that affects morality. And when someone says you cannot legislate morality, we talk about you cannot murder, you cannot steal, you cannot do false witnesses. Those are of the Ten Commandments, part of the Ten Commandments. The morality is legislated, so we don't have to worry about that. The other thing I want to think about is that I'm reminded of an old story that I learned a long time ago. It was talking about an Arab and his camel, but I'm going to take it to the United States. A cowboy was riding on the high deserts in California, decided to camp for the night. He got in his tent, and he happened to have a nice little fire in his tent. Because it gets cold up in the high, I don't know if you've ever been in the high desert, but it gets cold at night. And so he was there. The horse said to him, says, I'm getting kind of cold. Can I just stick my nose inside the tent so I can breathe a little better? And the guy said, okay, fine, I can do that. A little bit later on, he says, my ears are getting cold. Can I please stick my head in the tent, kind of keep my head warm? And he says, okay, fine. And a couple other times, he kept on talking about it. The next morning, the cowboy woke up shivering, his teeth chattering, and wondering, how in blue blazes did I get outside the tent and the horse got inside the tent? And the problem is that we are trying to legislate where we can just say simply, no, your freedom of speech does not allow and is not permitted, because it's a misunderstanding of what the phrase freedom of speech is. And again, the slippery slope concept and so forth and so on. Again, I appreciate what you're trying to do is to be proactive, but I think we need to be more proactive and say,
30 seconds.
we're not going to allow it here because we believe in God and country. And what you're talking about is what they want to perform and do is against what God's word says. And we need to trust God. God is in control of all things. As we are obedient to God, then we will be obedient to him, and we will be honored by that.
10 seconds.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Let's make it quick. Just basically the same thing of the horse in the tent. Somebody had made a comment that you were going to lose commerce, you were going to lose people. Actually, I see it a different way. I don't think you're going to lose that. I think Branson will actually grow. You're going to have a lot of businesses come in here, but they're not going to be the kind of businesses you want. I think a lot of money's going to be poured into Branson. And some of y'all are going to get really rich. But
When?
Well, when's that
I'm
show
running out
going to
of
start?
life.
When that show starts again, shortly after that. But at what cost? I mean, is it really worth it? Is it really worth it to bring more cabins and bigger business and more theaters and gambling? And is it worth it? I didn't think that was the kind of town I moved to a couple of years ago. So if y'all think the money's worth it, I guess you can go for it. But I hope there's a lot of good realtors around here, because I think a few of us are going to want to get one.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other speakers? Oh, you're going to get your microphone?
Yep.
Any other speakers
Nothing to
before we
say.
take, any other speakers? At this time, we'll end the public comment, and before the commissioners discuss the item, we'll go ahead and take a 10-minute break if that's all right. If it's not all right, we're still going to take a break, so.
2 minutes?
Okay,
30 seconds.
30 seconds. Okay, now we're going to hear from the commissioners. Any of the commissioners want to make any comments? Ruth?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'm going to preface my comments with a statement. Currently, we have nothing in our code that addresses drag queen. So we have something in our code that addresses adult entertainment. So and our law enforcement can only enforce that if that is what's happening at the current drag shows. If we don't do something, then we will have nothing that our law enforcement can enforce. So yes, this is it's not a great issue to be speaking about, but if we don't do something, we're left with nothing to enforce. I have 2 amendments, and Mr. Chairman, I don't know how you want me to.
Well, by the way, wait till we bring it up and.
Okay.
Okay. You have the comments, if that's okay, from any of the other commissioners?
Yes.
Rick?
I've talked to quite a few of you, and I appreciate your attendance, your passion. I also am passionate about this issue, but I also want you to know, and I spoke this during the break, we do not have a choice. We need, the federal government has forced us into this situation where we have to act. We have to allow. Now, the only way that we can do anything, as far as I can see, is to regulate it to the point where we can enforce penalties if they step out of bounds. That's what I believe we're here for tonight. Thanks.
Anybody else?
So, same comment that my 2 predecessors have said. One, just so you understand, we're not opening the door. The door's already open. We're just trying to restrict it. We're trying to manage it with this resolution. And the city, if we don't pass this in some way or some form, is still really got their hands behind their back and they're not going to be able to manage it. So we're all on the same thought pattern here. But we're going to restrict it instead of leaving it wide open like it is right now. We have to do something. We need to do something.
Excuse me, folks, please. We were courteous for you if you let us continue. I'd sure appreciate it. Thank you so much. Okay, anybody down there? Chuck?
We can't just say no.
What I wanted to say was, as it is right now, there's nothing that we can do to actually stop it. As it sits right now, you can open a show, I believe, next to the Presleys. You can open it anywhere. What we're trying to do is stipulate and take some of those areas out and let you have an area that we can regulate. If we don't pass this evening, you can open a show 76. There's nothing to stop it. That's all I wanted to say.
Anybody else? I'd like to share with you, it's not a matter of the door opening. The door was open. That's why we're sitting here tonight. There's no regulation that can stop a drag show. I could start a drag show tomorrow if I had a space right next to Dick's 5 and 10 downtown, because there's nothing that prohibits. I could get a theater and start a drag show tomorrow, and there's nothing that prohibits it. What the mayor and the administration is trying to do is give us a tool, a starting tool to start to manage it so that it doesn't get out of line like you're all concerned about. Do you honestly think that none of us care about the same things you do? Of course we do. I've got my great-grandchildren here. I've got my grandchildren here. I got 3 of my 4 kids here. I've been here 36 years. But you have to permit it. And if we do nothing, it's going to continue going just like it's going. They could open up 2 more shows tomorrow, and there's nothing you can do to stop them. So that's what this is. That's an attempt at that. Now, when we're finished here tonight, our recommendation will go to the Board of Aldermen. You then will have another opportunity to go to the Board of Aldermen and talk to them personally about this when it comes up on the agenda. It'll be announced, and you have another opportunity to influence it. And trust me, it's taken a lot of guts for the city to come as far as they've come, because there's not going to be any free lunch with this. There's a lot of risk associated with it. A lot of jobs depend on it. And what we want to do is we want to control it so that we can maintain the characteristics of our neighborhood and also our economic viability. And that's all we're trying to do. And I appreciate everything you said, and probably most of us up here feel exactly the same way. But the thing is, we've got to make the decisions that are best for the community and best for all of us. And we've got to do something to manage it, because if we don't, it's done. Sure, come on back up. Now, we're not going to start all over again, folks, but and I'm going to ask Mr. Lauber if he has anything he wants to say to.
Just a quick question. Thank you. Is there any way that the committee here, Commission Committee, can state, I hear you, and I think you're 100% correct, so I'm backing you
Oh,
on
can you
that.
tell my wife that?
Yes, I will. I see your point. I see all of your points. So is there a way we can say, not inside the city limits, let's find you a property elsewhere, or can we, how many votes do we have to get signed to put it on the ballot for the residents to vote on it? And where do we go with that? So those are the only 2 questions I have.
It honestly wouldn't make any difference.
It wouldn't?
In my opinion, because you have to permit the activity, and we only have authority on what happens inside the city limits of Branson. And we're trying to put us in the best position to manage that.
It's a tough place to be.
It's a great place to be. I wouldn't want to be anywhere
No,
else.
I mean, it's a tough position.
I'll go to glory from here.
Ma'am, could you? Ma'am,
Folks, we got to have an end to this, but go ahead. Now,
could you please state your name and sign
you got to come
in?
up here, ma'am. Well, hey, I'm sorry. I've got to sit up here.
Okay, my question is the kids. Why are you allowing these parents to bring their kid? Why are kids allowed there even if their parents are there? Can that be changed? That's huge.
The board can change anything when it goes up there. The problem is you got to start somewhere. This is, in my opinion, when this is finally enacted, it's not going to begin. This is the beginning.
That might be an amendment anyway, so let's just wait and hold on. Yep,
That's crazy. That is nuts.
yep.
All right, so that can be changed. That's nuts.
Joe, do you want to kind of, anything you want to say or anything you want to clear up that I might have messed up?
No, I think everything was handled well, and obviously you heard an impassioned group of citizens this evening, and again, that's the reason that we're here in the first place, because folks came out and spoke at a couple meetings in May, and the mayor and the board took action and had city staff start to put together an ordinance that would find a way. You all made the point. Right now, anywhere that live entertainment is permitted in the city of Branson would be allowed to do a drag show without this ordinance. So in order for us to, meet that challenge that the mayor and the board put to us, as far as limiting that down, we will need an ordinance that defines what a drag show is and going forward. So I'm happy to assist with, again, you heard a lot of comments tonight. You heard a lot of ideas of ways that the citizens think that, this ordinance as proposed could be improved. So if there are any sorts of amendments to the proposed ordinance, again, we talked about percentages, the discussion of whether, that line in there about, children being able to attend a show if their parents permit, that type of thing. Those are things that, we can, make a note of, and when this gets presented, as you all know, when you approve a resolution, make your recommendation either up or down, and it gets passed to the Board of Aldermen, we submit a final report, essentially, and that report would include whatever suggestions that you would have for additional edits to the ordinance when it goes over with respect to that. So, we're just, as it came forward, it's the Board of Aldermen that controls when there's a city-initiated zoning amendment like this. And so, we have to kind of keep to the scope, but, if we can keep it to the language that's in this particular ordinance, we can certainly take your recommendations to them.
And I don't know if you folks realize what a difficult job the legal team had. It's tough to craft an ordinance. And I think they did a magnificent job, and I appreciate you all coming tonight. And at this particular point, I accept the motion. I will close the discussion and accept the motion to approve the resolution recommending municipal code amendments to Chapter 94 of the Branson Municipal Code. Do I have a motion?
I would like to make an amendment.
But let's get it on the floor first, then we'll make the amendment. Okay, so you make it first. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Do we have any amendments that anybody wants to make? And Joe, would you kind of walk us through this?
Sure.
Thank you.
I would like to make an amendment on line item number 64 of the code to reduce that to 20% instead of 25%.
You said 64, sir?
To 20%?
Line item,
25 now.
64.
Section 1.
Section 1. There you go.
Okay,
Reduce that from
reason I have
25% to
okay.
20%.
Okay, so, Mr. Chairman, it sounds like, are you making a motion, sir?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a motion to amend line item, I have 66, but we understand what we're talking about here, the 25% down to 20%.
Do we have a second on that motion?
Second.
Any discussion on that motion? Can we have a vote on the amended motion?
Yes. Commissioner Richards?
No.
Alderperson Denham? No. Commissioner Green?
No.
Commissioner Hillis?
No.
Now, we want to reduce it from 25 to 20? Is
Yeah,
that
the motion is to amend from 25 down to 20.
I'll say yes.
Vice Chairperson Dieger?
Yes.
Commissioner Lloyd?
No.
Commissioner Martinoski?
No.
Commissioner O'Day?
No.
Two votes yea, 7 nay, motion defeated.
So it stays 25. Any other amendments? Ruth?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The same verbiage, Section 1, Item 1. I would like to remove where it says occurs in that sentence, strike out occurs for more than 25% of the performance, so that there is no percentage at all in there.
Is that a motion, Ruth?
Yes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Okay, let's hear what, we're on that same line again, and you're just taking out any percentage.
Yeah.
Is that
What
right?
does that mean?
Be nothing.
There will
you
be no
get-
percentage.
But am I correct, though, in this? Even though it's nothing, it doesn't impact the ones that are already doing, I use Terry Sanders because everybody can relate to him. Terry Sanders can continue to, if this thing passes, Terry Sanders will continue with the show just like he's been doing. He's probably doing, I don't know how many performances a year, but he can't do any more. And nobody would be able to put any other drag shows and shows outside of this ordinance. So,
So can I ask our
I have a question.
counselor?
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry.
absolutely.
So you put the 25% in there.
Can you speak in the microphone, please?
You put the 25% in there, excuse me, or it came this far, I guess, but are you thinking that if we went to 0, we would be maybe in trouble with federal laws, or?
So let's walk through with the proposed amendment, how would it read? Okay, the way it would read is that it would be the impersonation by, I should say an adult, not the adult, an adult or group of adults where the performance is intended to subvert gender stereotypes and includes jokes, references, dancing, singing, or any other conduct that depicts, describes, or relates to specified sexual activities. So if there are existing shows out there where individuals dress as the opposite gender to subvert gender stereotypes, but it does not include sexual conduct, then I believe the interpretation of that ordinance would be that those would not be considered drag shows. And it gets to, essentially there was a citizen who made a comment about the fact that it's kind of about the sex. And that's what this definition is designed to do, is to focus on that relates to specified sexual activities. The other component of that is where it says, or the adult or group is paid for the performance, gets to the possibility that it could be commercial expression, which governments have much more authority to regulate than they do expressive. So when it's commercial speech, you can, restrict billboards and sizes of signs and things like that much more easily than when you can just, be able to regulate somebody for, something they want to say because of what they said. So again, as amended, if you take the percentage out completely, it still would have to be a performance that includes jokes, references, dancing, singing, or other conduct that depicts, describes, or relates to specified sexual activities.
So absent that in our current shows, this wouldn't impact them at all.
Yeah, to the extent that any current show would have someone that is dressing as the opposite gender, doesn't include sexual innuendo, sexual content, then that would not qualify as a drag show.
So if we approve this, what we're saying is, we want zero of that outside of this ordinance.
Right. I think so. Let's take it a different way. If you had a 60-minute presentation and 14 minutes of that presentation included someone who got up, dressed as the opposite sex, and was giving a performance that included a lot of sexual innuendo, as proposed, that also would not be a drag show. Because the other 46 minutes of the show is good old family entertainment or something.
But if we say zero,
correct,
then it is a drag show. Okay, any other discussion on that?
So I do. So we've talked about that individual that is really
Please use the microphone.
we've talked about that individual that is really a funny guy, Terry Sanders, and he doesn't go over the line. But we're going to restrict that totally for a new person because it's a man dressed like a woman that
What you would be restricting is when a person dresses of the opposite gender, I'm kind of paraphrasing here, right? But we're talking about if a person dresses as the opposite gender and is up, essentially embellishing the stereotypes of that opposite gender and is telling jokes or dancing or other expressive activity, though, that is specific to sexual activities, that's what makes the difference.
Okay,
so anybody
we're not restricting Terry Sanders, it doesn't sound like.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never
okay.
seen his show, but I don't believe from what I've heard.
He's just funny, yeah.
Sexual activity, I think, is
the
key word that you're looking at.
And again, keep in mind, right, the whole idea here is while these types of shows do not meet our definition of adult entertainment, we are trying to create something that is very akin to that. Okay, so we're looking for activity that, while it might not be revealing body parts and it may not be other types of contact and things like that, it is something that is highly, kind of sexually charged in connection with the performance.
So if someone had a show and dressed the opposite way, and if it's not sexually explicit, then okay.
Mrs. Doubtfire, the movie.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I have a tag on with this 0% then. So later on, we were allowing possibilities of this happening in the downtown district. So that will shut that down too, or what's that?
I don't think I understand your question, sir.
Excuse me?
I don't understand your question.
Okay, so now that we're taking out any possibility with 0% in the show, later and more in this ordinance or resolution, we had where it was going to be allowed in the downtown district under certain criteria. So is that taking that away too?
Right, so in the definition that the amendment is about at this point in time, it tells us the what, okay? We're saying, what is it that we're regulating, okay? So with that, we would say that there can be no part of a show where someone dresses as the opposite gender and does a sexually, charged presentation, okay? And then what we do with the other parts of the ordinance is we say that now that we know the what, then the only place that is a where that it can occur is in the downtown district. And there is a how, because the how is that long list of items in the special use permit that those boxes all have to be checked before an establishment could put a show like that together in the downtown district. So that we remember the 600 feet from a school or a church, that, not within the distance of another show. So we don't have a grouping of these shows in the same area. That's why I was saying earlier, if we bog down on the individual elements of the ordinance itself, we lose sight of how it all works together to say, said and done, you know, it's about people dressing as a different gender, being kind of sexually explicit with their performance, what they're saying or doing, and they can only do it in a particular area subject to a list of requirements that would have to be approved by this board through a special use permit process. There's a lot of control for the city in this circumstance.
And again, it will not impact on the performances. If they meet this definition and they're performing a drag show now, it doesn't impact on them prior to, if
Right,
it
again,
takes place prior
because
to
the way
effective date.
zoning works, if there was a use that was permitted previous to the enactment of the zoning code, the new change to the law, then anything that was occurring before is allowed to keep continuing with, except for those exceptions that I lined out as far as you can't expand, you can't move it, you can't, you know, if it gets, you know, destroyed for some reason, you can't rebuild it.
So it just controls its expansion. It lets us manage it and control it and. Okay. Other? Anybody else?
So, quick, let's answer that. Is there any, we had the 25% in there, we go to 0, what do you see any fallout to that with state and federal laws, or are we gonna ask protest groups to start coming to Branson and telling us why we?
Without going further, we are looking at regulation that will regulate individuals' expressive activities, okay? Freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom of religion are all things that are held at a very same standard. So there is risk in doing this, but my understanding from our mayor and our board is they're willing to take that risk and they want to push forward, and they've asked me to try to create an ordinance that will get us as far as we can possibly go.
So you brought it with 25% though.
So
I guess
I'm sorry, sir, could you please use the microphone?
So you brought it with 25%, so that's where you thought we could possibly, as far as we could go with it, I guess.
I had direction.
Yeah.
The original draft had 25, 50, and 75 in it. And I just said, this is a blank. You can put in it what you want. There are 3 examples. It could be 0, it could be 100. The number that I was directed to bring forward was 25.
Any other comments on that amendment? Okay, let's call a vote on it.
So does everybody remember what the motion is to strike that?
We're going
line?
from
Okay, just
25 to
making sure.
0. I remember
Yeah,
0.
so we would be eliminating the phrase in subsection 1 under drag show that says occurs, we would be eliminating occurs for more than 25% of the performance. And I think we'll have to edit it in a way to make it smooth, to basically just take that out, but say that we would still want the performance is intended to subvert gender stereotypes, if I understand it correctly. Okay. So that's the edit.
Any other comments on the amendment before we? Okay, call the vote.
Okay, roll call vote. Commissioner Richards?
No.
Alderperson Denham?
Yes.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Hillis?
Yes.
Chairperson Groman?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Dieger?
Yes.
Commissioner Lloyd?
No.
Commissioner Martinowski?
No.
Commissioner O'Day?
No.
Then the amendment passes?
5 votes yea, 4 nay. Motion carries.
So it is 0. Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any other, anybody want to make any other amendments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. It would be line 73, the definition for drag show establishment. The definition to read, an establishment at which live entertainment is offered at the establishment qualifies as drag shows. An establishment at which live entertainment is offered at the establishment qualifies as drag shows.
So essentially, it'd be the elimination of the more than 60% as what would make the venue a drag show establishment.
So they have a drag show, they're a drag show establishment. And again, it doesn't affect any establishments that are currently doing drag shows to the extent they can't change how many or.
Right. And just
Does somebody want to, I'm sorry, I spoke out of turn. Somebody want to second that motion or not? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any commissioners have any comments you want to make on that?
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question on that. Now, this is the definition of the drag show establishment,
correct.
right? So it would read that an establishment that offers live entertainment qualifies as a drag show. If you take that out, correct?
The term itself is drag show establishment, and drag show is defined. That was the prior definition that we were looking at. So it would exclude anything that's not a drag show. And certainly, we could add. Oh no, it says drag shows at the very end of this, so it's fine. It covers it.
Any other?
The last two words are drag shows.
Any other comments by commissioners or?
So what we're accomplishing here is just any percentage is, any part of a drag show is considered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if a venue hosted a drag show every couple months and other shows at other times, just the every couple months would make it a drag show establishment.
But if one was currently doing it every couple of months, they could continue to do it every couple of months. I just want them to
Legal
know
nonconforming
that
use
we're not
is gonna stay the
throwing
same.
people that currently do it under the bus. It's the new stuff that's coming in, and that's what we can prevent and keep from growing.
And just if it helps in any way, because even when I was reviewing this, my first thought was, wait, where are we using drag show establishment? Drag show establishment is actually used kind of repeatedly in the special use permit process, so just so you know where it's being used.
Any other comments from commissioners?
If I may, the purpose of me making this amendment is a drag show is a drag show is a drag show, and that's why I wanted the percentage removed.
Any other comments? Oh, go ahead. No, man.
We'll need you to come to the podium and sign in, please.
Now, you all know I'm going to get chewed out for this, don't you? Because I'm not maintaining decorum. So come on, give me.
My question is, if anything is going on right now, any place in Branson, does that mean they're going to have to go to these locations?
That would be the only place they can go. And folks, I'm sorry. This is my first meeting as chairman. I screwed up. The public comment period is over. That's it. But to answer your question, ma'am, the ones that are going right now will continue to go because there's nothing we can do. But there won't be any new ones, and that's what we're trying to stop.
I see. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And I'm sorry, sir, but we're going to have to cut it off here. I'm sorry. Forgive me, folks. I won't give me my paycheck for this meeting. They do, sir, and if any show even now does that, they can be violated. That's not really covered under this. Right now, they can be violated for that. Doesn't make any difference, drag queen or anything else. I'm sorry, Joe.
We're ready to vote.
Yep. Anything you want to add, Joe?
Would we like a roll call?
Any other comments?
Do you foresee any legal problems with that? I mean, as far as,
So we're regulating expressive activity and potentially gender.
okay.
Okay, any other comments from the commissioners before we vote? Can we call the vote?
Commissioner Richards?
Yes.
Alderperson Denham?
Yes.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Hillis?
Yes.
Chairperson Groman?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Dieger?
Yes.
Commissioner Lloyd?
Yes.
Commissioner Martinowski?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Day?
No.
8 votes yea, 1 nay. Motion carried.
Thank you. Now we're down to reports. Any commissioners have a report they want to make?
Excuse
Whoa,
me,
whoa, whoa.
Mr. Chair.
We haven't even
voted yet.
Oh, wait. We voted. We didn't vote?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, so I know that a couple commissioners, I don't know if any other commissioners had amendments, we should, certainly ask for that. But before we can proceed, you would then need to at least entertain a motion on the resolution. And obviously, we have some amendments, so you could make that, if no one has further comments or further edits, then a proper motion would be a motion to amend the resolution with the proposed ordinance as amended.
Do we have any other commissioners want to make any other amendments? Now, would it be appropriate now to say what you just said? You said it so well.
So, okay, so if there are no further amendments, if a commissioner would like to make a motion to adopt the resolution, provided that the proposed ordinance is amended as directed.
I make that motion.
You can't do that, you're the chairman. Somebody else.
I make
Hey, I'm
that
trying,
motion.
guys, I'm trying.
I think
So
Mr.
moved.
Hillis.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Can I vote?
Yes, you can vote.
Commissioner Richards?
So are we voting on this, the whole deal, right?
Yes.
Yeah, this is the resolution that would adopt the proposed ordinance, but the ordinance, we'll have to amend the ordinance based on your direction as a
Yeah.
commission.
Hell no.
Okay.
Alderperson Denham?
Yes.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Hillis?
Yes.
Chairperson Groman?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Dieger?
Yes.
Commissioner Lloyd?
Yes.
Commissioner Martinowski?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Day?
No.
7 votes yea, 2 nay. Motion carried.
Thank you, folks, for your attendance, really appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, if I might just ask, just procedurally, if we could get a motion to authorize you to sign the documents to send over to the Board of Aldermen once they've been amended in accordance with the commission's direction.
Would somebody make that motion?
I'll make it.
Thank you. Would somebody second that motion?
Second.
Good, now we vote on it?
That way, we don't have to come back to the commission with the revised documents. We can take them straight forward.
Commissioner Richards?
Yes.
Alderperson Denham?
Yes.
Commissioner Green?
Yes.
Commissioner Hillis?
Yes.
Chairperson Groman?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Dieger?
Yes.
Commissioner Lloyd?
Yes.
Commissioner Martinowski?
Yes.
Commissioner O'Day?
No.
Okay. We have 8 votes yea, 1 nay. Motion carried.
Okay. Does the staff have any reports for the commission?
We do not, Chairman.
Okay. Do any of the commissioners have any reports they want to make? Next item would be adjournment. I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion.
Second.
Roll call vote. Commissioner Richards?
Yes.
Alderperson Denham? Yes. Commissioner Green? Yes. Commissioner Hillis?
Yes.
Chairperson Groman?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Dieger?
Yes.
Commissioner Lloyd?
Yes.
Commissioner Martinoski? Yes. Commissioner O'Day?
Yes.
9 votes yay, 0 nay. Motion carried and meeting adjourned at 8:29 PM.
Thank you all for attending. Appreciate it.